Hi, I'm Cheri Bryant Hamilton, a lifelong Chickasaw resident. We're here today to celebrate Chickasaw's legacy, 1940s to 1970s. This is a neighborhood of many people who were first, who were trailblazers, who helped break down barriers of segregation in this community, in this neighborhood, as a matter of fact. We're proud to celebrate and to recognize the families, the individuals, and the pioneers who led the way and on whose shoulders we stand. The arts, education, medicine, literary, photographers, military, police, fire, you name it. Chickasaw residents have been at the forefront in these occupations and in these endeavors. We want to celebrate, we want to recognize, and we want to remember the good things that happened in this neighborhood from the pre-integration days, desegregation, and fighting for integration, and fighting for civil rights. We're proud to have you here with us today, and we'll hope you will take part in sharing your memories and letting us know who we forgot. This is a last call because we're publishing a coffee table book with first-hand stories and photographs and memories of people in our families who helped pave the way for us. Thank you for coming and enjoy.
Labora Goodwin. And I grew up in this house. My parents moved in this house in November of 1950, and my sister, who was older than me, she was born the next month in 1950. And because my brother, he's about 2 years old when they moved in. And I've been here ever since. And this book that we're writing, the idea came from Cheri Bryant Hamilton. We had a meeting here, I forgot what year that was. It was probably in 2019. Pretty sure it was. And there was a lady from, I think her name was Ann, from Louisville Magazine. She called me and wanted me to get some people together to talk about redlining. So I called some people, and Cheri was one of them. She came, and before she left, Cheri said, I still want to do that book about Chickasaw. So after we did the marker celebration for Mr. Plato, which was June the 1st, I think 2 or 3 months, see, that was in June, and so in September or August, we started meeting here to talk about the Chickasaw book. We met and we sat down and we talked about who grew up on what street, and we gave a list of all the teachers, the doctors, the lawyers, the people that worked in factories. We tried to cover everything that made up Chickasaw to us. We had the people, the judges, we had the lawyers and the doctors, and they may have lived next door to a person that did day work, but it didn't make any difference. And the people that worked at the post office and DuPont and GE and just anywhere. We heard so much, we hear so much about these killings and things, but we wanted to tell our story. We wanted to talk about how we grew up if you lived here from the 40s to the 70s, and that's our dates, from 1940s to 1970s. We wanted to talk about the people the first blacks that did this, the teachers that we had that had an influence on us, the tone that was set by our parents, that because our parents, all these people came from other areas. My dad came from Newburgh, my mother from Smoketown, and people came from other counties and just moved here, and it seemed like everybody, those parents had the same code, that this is what you do. This is, you don't walk on people's yards. You listen. You behave yourself. You will not embarrass me. And you cleaned up, and you did. Everybody did their yards, and you took pride in yourself. And you did your yards. You did this. You did that, and you just did things. And and your parents didn't have excuses for you, because you knew that when you left here that you were given instructions on how to behave yourself. Before you stepped out that door, you knew how to act and behave yourself. The teachers, there are 7 teachers just in this block alone. And it was quiet down here, very quiet. You saw them going to work, coming home from work, or going to another job. You saw them going to club meetings. You saw them going to the YMCA, YWCA. You just saw them just busy and sitting on the front porch, just chilling, just taking in that summer breeze just coming through.
Speaking of security, you live about 1 block from the park, where you maybe just walk around the neighborhood and go to the park.
Oh, the park was. You thought we were going to Kings Island, because when you got to go to the park, we asked our mom, could we go to the park because so and so was going with us, and we would just walk over there and because you had to be back home at 6 o'clock. So you kept, some of us had a watch on, some of us didn't. We just kind of guessed at it. And, we went over to the park. You walk over to Haywood, over on Greenwood, and back. And we did that mostly on Sunday. I don't know why. But
what was Haywood?
Haywood, it was a Haywood Dairy over there on Greenwood at 45th and Greenwood, right there on the corner. Well, kind of, it was another store than a Haywood.
But there was a lot of stores in the West End. Ziga Drugs and
Teller Drugs, Ziga Drugs.
Cleaners.
Ebony Cleaners. His daughter's Shamel. Her family owned those. Ebony Cleaners. Rhonda Ramsey Cleaners.
My name is Kip Raphael Mackey. I am from the Chickasaw neighborhood. I grew up about a half a block over here to the right as we're speaking. Therefore, I was often in the park, walking through, having a good time. There are a lot of wonderful memories I have of the park. It was the 60s and the 70s. It was a time of change, transition, and social reckoning. The Vietnam War had just ended, and we were trying to figure it all out. So basically, what we're doing here is holding on to the narrative of what we had as we were growing up. Having a narrative is a big part of a story that we should all be able to tell ourselves. So the Shawnee and Chickasaw, better than that. The Chickasaw neighborhood was a wonderful neighborhood, and we depended upon each other. There was a lot of loyalty, a lot of trust, and a lot of solidarity between all of us, because it was a time where we had to depend upon unity to get through. Well, I have a lot of hopes, because we should be prisoners of hope at all times. But what my biggest hope is that all of these things that we grew up with can be passed down to our younger generation. I think our younger generation is missing a lot of that unity, a lot of that loyalty and trust. And that's one of the biggest things I hope for. And another thing that I'm hoping for, there were many educators and the elders of our community that passed down a lot of stories, and they also gave us a lot of responsibilities to work on as young people. And I hope and pray that our younger generation will be able to do those things in the days to come.
Hello, my name is Claudia Smiley Guerin, and I was a resident of the Chickasaw neighborhood for almost 16 years. Actually, it was a little over 16 years. My parents moved to the neighborhood at the address of 1015 South 36th Street when I was 11 months old, and my mother was getting ready to have my brother. And for 16 years, we lived there, and I loved it. I loved the neighborhood. I loved the neighbors. I was only 4 blocks from the elementary school I attended, which was Virginia Avenue School, and it was just a wonderful time in my life. I had plenty of friends, and we had a very nice porch that my dad had built. He didn't build it, but he had a man by the name of Mr. Anthony. I do not know his first name, who was a contractor, African-American contractor then, and he made us a front porch and was very nice, and we had a very smooth porch where we could play jacks. And a lot of times in the summer, that's where you would find a lot of our neighborhood friends. Some of our neighborhood friends included the Porter Boys, we call them. That would be Walter Press. A lot of people know Press from the funeral home that he owns. His brother Arthur, his younger brother Edmund, and his baby brother Freddie. They were fixtures in the neighborhood. We called them the Porter Boys because they were almost like a little gang, and a lot of people were afraid of them. I had a brother and a sister. I'm the oldest, and my brother's 11 months younger, and his name was Arvin. Of course, he's now deceased, but we were 11 months apart. And then in 1949, on the 4th of July, my mother had my sister. Her name is Ramona, and she still is living and resides in Lexington, Kentucky. I've been involved with this group for almost a year, over a year. And I'm a writer too. I like to write, and I do have sometimes opinions in the newspaper. And so I knew Cheri, of course, very well, and also I knew Labora. She knew my husband and his family because they all attended the same church, Virginia Avenue Baptist Church. And that's sort of how I got involved. And of course, I know a lot of people. And you know, when you think of Chickasaw, a lot of times people think of the Parkway, where Chickasaw goes all the way up. The boundaries go all the way up to 34th Street on the east side. And of course, on the west side is the river, and on the south side, I think it goes to Dumanil. And on the east side, it goes to the south side of Broadway. Yeah. So I got involved. I thought, well, that would be something to do because, you know, a lot of, 36th Street was part of Chickasaw, and there were a lot of residents there that I knew. So that's how I kind of got involved with it. It was very secure. You could do whatever you wanted to do. I used to go to the beauty shop on Cecil, a lady by the name of Dorothy Johnson, and I went to her beauty shop in her basement. And I would get out of school from Duval Junior High School and come home and get the money I needed to get my hair done and walk to her house. And I could walk home before it got dark. And if dusk or dark was coming, all I needed to do was just, walk home up the street to Garland, and then up the street another block to Kentucky, and I'd be at home. And I never thought about anyone attacking me or bothering me. I would go through the alley and come home, but never thought about that.
James Bennett. James Gregory Bennett. They called me Greg back then. I was not named James. Wasn't being used because my father was named James. So they called me Greg, and that was our first house. The house was like 41. Not exactly it was on Winrose Way between Cecil and the next street up top. What's that street going across? 43rd. And I remember playing on the streetcar tracks that were still there. You know what I mean? And it was a nice time. I mean, because we had just moved from Beachy Terrace to this house. I was so proud of this house. We had a house. Although we didn't have, it wasn't big because we had four kids. We just had my sister was just born. I loved going to Stephen Foster, but I had an integration shock because I had never went to school with white kids, and I was like the only black kid in my class. And I remember Clinton didn't do too well with that neither. So we had to deal with that because they didn't really want us there. They didn't really want us on the street. We were like blockbusters, okay? And so we I think it was 3 black families on the street when I first moved there. And then, boom, because I think Flemings was already there. And Miss Reed was already there. And I think Jason Williams, they moved down from Beecher Terrace the same time we did. Because we went to S.C. Teller, the old S.C. Teller. And, I went there the first, the second, and part of the third grade, but the rest of the third grade, I went to Stephen Foster. And, Stephen Foster's okay. It's just that, dealing with white people was kind of rough at times. But we did it, I remember there was a lot of pollution there because we get up in the morning, our cars would be covered with this white dust. Some kind of stuff, and I was figuring, I'm a biologist. I was figuring that, later in life that a lot of white people had cancer that lived in that neighborhood because of the plant. They were talking about how blacks, the whites that lived there 20, 30 years ago, before we did, they lived in a horrible place, man, because you had Ford, you had all these that just, Rubber Town. It was rough. They didn't have no EPA. It was rough. And so the one thing that hurt me was my dog getting killed. My dog, I had a puppy, a German Shepherd puppy, first dog I ever had. And he kept pulling people's clothes off the line. 'Cause back then, you didn't have dryer. You hang your clothes up. And somebody poisoned him. And so he was dead in front of my, and that hurt me. I went to Shawnee. We walked from, Cecil all the way to 41st, all the way down. And we walked that road. Wasn't really, a lot of us there did. A lot of, it was a white school. And if you could see Market Street did, or Cecil did, it was a whole different world. We had Ziegler Drugs, we had Clemens, we had, I forget the name of the hardware store there.
Money Penny.
Huh?
Money Penny.
Money Penny. And we had restaurants, we had ice cream parlors, we had theaters, we had bakeries, and we had hardware stores all over the place. And it was a lot of whites are still living in off of Market. And I even had Jews in my class because they read that little book. You know what I mean? I never thought I'd go to school with a Jewish guy. You know what I mean? But yeah, they were there, and it was an interest. That was an interesting era. You know what I mean? And since I was an athlete, because most of the guys like Lee Bolges and Ken Thomas and all of them, they were, we had a good football team, we had a good basketball team. Shawnee, it was an all-girls school to the 55, you know what I mean? Then they turned co-ed, and we were kind of like the first. There was some kids like Calvert, I don't know, Bobby Calvert and all of them. They were early in Shawnee. Cause he ran track and stuff, played baseball, and but Shawnee I like Shawnee. Shawnee gave me a good education where when I went to college, I was ahead. I went to a black college, but I was ahead, man. I was in the advanced program, and I took, I took some serious classes, man, and it really prepared me for college. You know what I mean?
My name is Lynn Francesca McQuarrie. I grew up on the 4500 block of Grand Avenue. As a matter of fact, we lived in two houses on that block. First, we lived at my grandparents', and then we moved all the way up about 3 houses. But growing up in Chickasaw was amazing, and I thought everybody who grew up in the neighborhood was like ours. We had doctors, lawyers, janitors, teachers, people worked for the government. We had everybody watched out for each other. We learned how to swim because there was about 3 swimming pools in the whole Chickasaw neighborhood. We went to school together. I remember walking down to Dr. Joyce Young, and she would give me my shots because she was a doctor. And then there was got plenty of doctors, a lawyer, we had ophthalmologists, we had optician. We did a lot of things together over in Chickasaw Park. We had birthday parties over in the Chickasaw Pavilion. And, well, I couldn't because my birthday's in January. It's a little cold to be over in the park. But on our street Grand, we had a nice hill. And it wasn't many cars came on the street, so we could get our sleds, and everybody we would share, and we would use, plus we used the tops of garbage cans, and we had sleds, we had plastic ones, we had wooden ones, and as a matter of fact, we still got ours in our basement. And we rode bikes together as a group. We played four squares, and you didn't want to be hit by Deborah Brown because she kind of threw hard. We played softball, flag football. We were in the Girl Scouts at Westwood Presbyterian Church. Didn't get to be the brownie, just went to the regular Girl Scouts. Every Christmas on our street, we had a Christmas party, and they would have, you get a big orange, one of those huge peppermint stick about that thick, and nuts, candies, a little gift, and that everybody would get that. We would trick or treat, and you would get nice trick or treats. You wouldn't get the little miniature size. We get the nice size candy bars and candy. Then you didn't have to worry about people putting stuff in it wrong. Everybody had their pets, and pets were just. We had a swing in our backyard, so all the kids would come and play in our backyard, and they could play there as long as they would act right. And unfortunately, we did have this one cat that he would get in the evergreen tree and jump out on the kids, and all of a sudden you hear a kid screaming because the cat jumped. He wouldn't hit them, he just would jump out and it would scare them. But we had, then in other people's yards, we had pear trees, we had apples, at least 3 different types of apples.
When did you get involved with the Chickasaw Committee? And
Well, it started, my mother started it because when they were doing the cookbook, before about the Plato book, she gave out some recipes. And as we were doing it, she was doing it, we were talking about doing it. We kept saying, well, we need to do a book about the neighborhood, because some of the stories that people give it about what happened when we were growing up, we said, we should do this as a book. And then they got so many rave reviews from all over the world about that cookbook. And so at first, I said, well, I don't know if I have time to do it and stuff like that. But then more and more I talked about it and heard people hear some of the stories. I said, we had a great growing up. And I just, like I said, I assumed that all neighborhoods were like that, where everybody would help each other out. But when I grew up and I found out in the real world, no, it's not like that. They were, I know Cheri and my sister were in the debutantes together back before they graduated from high school. They all class of '68. And so, but I knew Cheri growing up because we used to make fun. When she'd come on the street, we would sing the song about using her name. I can't think of the name of the group now. Oh, the Beach Boys, and they just song Cheri. And we would be singing, all the little kids, we would be singing that song, and she couldn't stay. She's, oh, y'all shut up, don't do it. But, we were just joking and stuff. But, like I said, we knew her since we were kids. I didn't know Labora until later, even though she went to Male. She was 2 years ahead of me. Oh, no, she was actually older than me. So I really didn't know her, but I knew about her family because I knew about people lived on Plato Terrace, but I just really didn't know her until later on. We were very close-knit. If somebody needed something, we could go there. Like I said, there were doctors, lawyers, people worked for the sanitation department, people worked for the government. Somebody would help you get the road to how to do stuff. Nobody would say, well, I'm doing my stuff, I don't have no time to help anybody else. Everybody would help somebody else. And that's what I do like. And that's the reason why when I moved back, because my mother was still in the house. But I just can't imagine living anywhere else. It's just, I'm close to 2 parks. I'm easily accessed on the expressway. It's just, yeah, sure, I wish there were more homeowners in this area. That makes a difference versus renters. But then people need to respect, things that are going on, ask questions and stuff. And that's how we try to treat our neighbors on our street, especially if they've been there for a while. They see what we do, and then all of a sudden everything is fine. They pick up the trash. They don't leave the garbage cans. Just little things that we used to do. When we did in our neighborhood, nobody left any trash out, and they don't care if it wasn't whose trash it was. They could just pick it up. So, but that's one of the few difference now. But yeah, fortunately, I wish there was a lot more homeowners, and I don't want, ours is a hidden gem, and I don't want it to be people come in here and thinking, oh, well, I can make a lot of money out of here, and change the whole. What's left of the dynamics is still in this area. But I love Chickasaw.
Hello, my name is David Kimbrough, and I was first came to the Chickasaw area in 1956. After that, let me see, the fairgrounds was still on that property of Old Miles Park. And then after that, after the fairgrounds, came a couple other things, and then it turned into the quote-unquote thoroughbred racetrack called Miles Park at that particular time. And then after that, the name was changed from Miles Park to Smiles Park, from Smiles Park to Commonwealth Park. Okay, I was elementary school. I attended Virginia Avenue. Evelyn R. Jackson was the principal when I went there. Junior high school. Well, during that time, civil rights and things were bumping and going off then. Back then, when back during that time, and that would have been got to Duval in 67, and the rise was 68. Yeah, and so we went through all of that. We living in the area where I lived, that they had just built the Miles Memorial Baptist Church. During the civil rights time, a lot of protests and things were held. Reverend Jeffrey Josephs, he was the pastor, and that's where A.D. King, Ralph Abernathy, Martin Luther King, Eldridge Cleaver, Huey Newton, Stokely Carmichael, Bobby Rush. God, it was all kinds of Black Panther people there. And as far as the civil rights movement was concerned, and thus rolling off of that, and then coming forward, there was a number of different things that happened within the Black community, and that's where a lot of us we turned demonstrate. Okay, the area changed from that point to this point. This is a brand new animal. And literally, you living, in the area outside of I think about 7 or 8 years that I had, well, prior to me leaving here and stuff, things were changing. Prior to me leaving, going there, because I moved to Chicago. I lived in Chicago for about 7 or 8 years. And then, but when I came back from Chicago, I came back to a brand new beast that I had never, it was almost like me going to another city.
Good afternoon. I am Elmer Lucille Allen, and I moved to the Chickasaw area in 1960 when I built my home in Algonquin Gardens. While there, I did not realize the importance of this area when I moved here. While I was here, I started working at Brown Foreman, and I retired from there in 1997 after 31 years, and so I was hired there in 1966. And so this area has a lot to do with me. And as a child, you talk about Chickasaw Park. I remember catching a bus coming to Chickasaw Park, but I did not realize the importance of Chickasaw Park. And last night I attended the Land of Tomorrow, and it's recognizing the fellow who actually created the Olmsted Parks. And so it really made me realize is that this area is not only important now, but it was important when it was built, because this was the only park for African Americans to go to. And in order to get here, I grew up in the Russell area, and we had to catch 2 buses to come to Chickasaw Park. Since I've lived in Algonquin Gardens, I raised 3 children: Michael Charles Allen Sr., Patricia Lucille Patterson, and Cruz T. Patterson. And I can say this, that in the neighborhood where I lived in a cul-de-sac. My children were allowed to go out and play. I didn't have to worry about anything. And they're all still alive. And that says a lot in these days. And when you sit down and think about it, I've been involved for years in the Chickasaw area. I founded the Chickasaw Little League in the early 1960s. And the reason why it was formed is that my 2 sons wanted to play Little League ball. And there was a Shawnee Little League. But if you live south of Broadway, you cannot play. So I raised enough money for 6 teams. And we were in existence for 3 or 4 years. But I found out over the period of years, nobody really wants to lead. They'll follow, but no one really wants to take leadership. And I'm still out here in the community working to help others. And I just enjoyed living here. And I own 3 houses in the Chickasaw area. I think I own 4 houses in Chickasaw area. And my grandson lives in one. And that house has a significance because 4407 is the house that G.C. Cox lived in. And he was one of the greatest artists, in this area. And so every time I think about that, you think about here you going where he lived. And here I am, 91 years old, and I'm still creating art. And I had an opening last night at Art Sanctuary. And it was really rewarding to see all the parks that have been created by Olmsted. And I think it's something we all need to go see. And if you know Raymond Graff, he did a statue of Olmsted. And I just like to say, I thank God that I lived in this area, and that I was able to raise my children. We went to Christ the King Church, and they also went to school there. And thank you for interviewing.
My name is Myra Friend Ellis. I lived in the 4500 block of Westchester off of Southwestern Parkway. My family moved there in 1959. In fact, November of 1959. And my family and I came to Louisville from Tennessee. My mom and dad, James and Anna Friend, both worked for the old Louisville Board of Education. My dad was hired with the Department of Agriculture in Terre Haute, Indiana, which we never made to Terre Haute. But Louisville became my home for 60 years. So I know no other place but Louisville as home. I went to Stephen Foster, Manley, and Shawnee High School, and from there I ended up at Bellarmine University in Louisville. So I've had a really great life living in the Chickasaw area, Chickasaw Park being my almost like backyard. Friends, playing tennis, singing songs, just talking and having fun in Chickasaw Park. What I admire most about the Chickasaw area is the community of pride and joy. The value, the history, what we learned growing up, how we were taught by our parents to have good grades and good manners. And I think we were very successful in that. So I am proud to be a person of Westover, Chickasaw area.
Hello, my name is Rhonda Ramsey Finney. I lived at 1308 Fairland Place in Algonquin Gardens in the Chickasaw neighborhood of West Louisville, Kentucky, 40211. I moved there. My parents built a house there in 1958. A little backstory, we lived in the California neighborhood of Louisville, and my father saw where a Negro builder was building houses down by Chickasaw Park. We were familiar with Chickasaw Park because that was one of the few parks we, as little brown children, could go to in the early 50s. And so we were all excited about moving down there. My parents were working people. My dad worked at the post office. My mom worked in the school system. She was a cafeteria worker. So she had every summers off with us. So she would take us down to the park during the day and we would play in the fountain. I thought I could swim because it was only maybe 3 inches of water, but I thought I was swimming in there. This Chickasaw book means everything to me. It means my legacy from my parents, my brother. I had an older brother who was 2 years older than me. His name was Charles Ramsey Jr. My parents were Charles A. Ramsey Sr. and Jesse Lee Savage Ramsey. My dad was, after he left the post office, he became a businessman. He opened up a dry cleaning business in the Chickasaw neighborhood on 34th Street. We stayed there for a couple of years until the freeway came through, which was a blessing because he was able to acquire a much bigger building at 38th and Broadway, and our business expanded. We were an integral part of the West End, specifically Chickasaw because we lived there, but also part of the Shawnee neighborhood as well. We sponsored Little League teams, we sponsored debutantes, church banquets. We were just part of the neighborhood, and that's the beauty of Chickasaw. Chickasaw was a neighborhood village. All the children played together. All the parents looked out for the kids. It was a safe environment where we could grow up and feel positive vibrations as far as who we were. It helped our self-esteem. It built a feeling that we could do anything we wanted to do. We could be anything we wanted to be. Because look across the street. The people on the corner were principals of high schools. The guy on the corner was a judge. The lady next door to me, Miss Elmer Lucille Allen, was a chemist at Brown Forman. I loved her white uniform that she wore every morning as she went out to go to work. And I said, I want to do that. And by God, I did. I became a chemist, a laboratorian, an immunologist at UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles, California. And I had a very fulfilling and wonderful career. But I got more than just my career. I got a feeling of my value, my worth. Everyone in the Chickasaw, no matter what your occupation was, you were valued because we all realized that it takes a village to make a society. Everyone contributes. Everyone is a part of the success, or we could be a part of the failure if we don't work together. This book is to celebrate the legacy of the Chickasaw Village. It is to let our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren know what was accomplished back in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s in very trying times. We were the forefront of the civil rights movement. I went to the University of Kentucky. Why did I pick that? In 1967, while I was there, Martin Luther King was assassinated. I was in my dorm room paralyzed because I didn't know what the other people who were not mine, that didn't look like me, were going to do to me when I walked outside of my dorm room. It was very scary. There were altercations I was involved in an altercation with the football players. It's written in a book about that day that we came home from dinner, and in our lobby, we were, let's say, not accosted, but confronted by some people who didn't really agree with us being there. The fellas pushed us girls into the elevators so that we could be out of danger while they fought. They fought for us to be able to be at the University of Kentucky in 1968. Went through a lot, but we came out stronger and more determined than ever. If you think you can break our spirit, you can't break that Chickasaw spirit because it's embedded. It's been generationally passed down. And what this book is about, and one of the purposes of this book, is to instill that into this young generation today, for them to know where we came from, for them to know how the Chickasaw neighborhood was formed through adversity, through when the first houses were built down here for us. They went through a lot just to get building permits and be able to purchase the land. So we want today's generation to know you should have pride in your neighborhood. We want to rebuild that legacy, to keep it ongoing, so that all of our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren can be productive citizens in Louisville, Kentucky. The more I do research on Chickasaw and the people that were down here, I'm finding some fabulous, fabulous information that we didn't know. Our parents did not know some of the past accomplishments and milestones that some of the residents of Chickasaw accomplished, back in the 30s and 40s. Of course, we're starting in the 40s, but the foundation was set in the 20s and the 30s. So that in the 40s, when we came along, in the 40s and 50s, our parents were able to provide for us education, brand new wonderful homes, great education in our schools. We had African American teachers who loved us, who cared for us, and who were working hard for us to succeed. There was no one working against us. If you didn't succeed, it was because you weren't putting in any effort, because you had your parents, your neighbors, your teachers. Everyone was there for you. You had lots of resources to go to. So I'm excited about the book. We have uncovered so much information. We have so many entries. There are so many people who are saying, yeah, I want to be a part of this, because I realize this is history. This is history in the making. It's history that has been uncovered and revealed for future generations. I want to thank you, and hey, buy the book.
Hi, I'm Marcia K. Morriman, and I spent my life growing up in Chickasaw. Now, technically, my home was in Parkland neighborhood, but everybody, my entire family lived in Chickasaw. And of course, I spent most of my entire life with my family. My grandfather was at 36th and Grand Avenue. My aunt and uncle was on Brewster, off the Parkway. My other aunt and uncle and children were on Hale Street in the Parkway. And my father's on Plateau Terrace. So everyone was in Chickasaw.
My grade school was Christ the King, and my high school was Loretta Academy. So that's my entire life. And all my entire friends live down here. Chickasaw was such a village. Well, West End was such a village. Everyone looked out for everyone. The kids looked out for each other. The grown-ups looked out for the kids. The older kids looked out for the younger kids. Everyone was basically holding each other's hand when need be. I always felt that growing up in Chickasaw especially, even if I didn't know what a household was, if I ever felt like I had a problem or I fell off my bike or was hurt or something, I could walk to any house, knock on the door, and know that somebody wanted to help me. So that's how safe we felt here. That's how the kind of friendships that we had. My family one uncle was president of Mammoth Life and Accident Insurance Company. His name was Junius Hankins, J.E. Hankins. His wife was my mother's sister, Jane Hankins. My other uncle, Laval Duncan, was vice president of Mammoth Life and Accident Insurance Company, and he was also treasurer. His wife was Johnny Duncan. That was my mother's other sister. So their children was Devon Duncan and Laval Todd Duncan. I just can't ever give enough expression as to how much I loved being here. How I got involved with this, Cheri and I grew up together, and Cheri and I were running partners all through our lives. So when this whole subject came up about capturing stories of people's experience growing up in Chickasaw, it all made sense. Our parents were movers and shakers, and I mean throughout the community. Every household in Chickasaw was a professional household. Someone was a doctor or a lawyer or a dentist or president of an insurance company or vice president. Business owner. My grandfather was a business owner of his own gas station at 8th and Walnut. Every household in this community was a professional household. Therefore, the kids growing up, we knew each other in church. My church was Church of Our Merciful Savior. I am still friends today with the friends that I had as a child. We all grew up in Jack and Jill's together. I am still friends today with whoever's still living in Jack and Jill's. It was a tight-knit community. And then we had civil rights. So we were learning from our parents how to deal with the whole issue of having to fight for freedom, having to fight for our rights, the right to vote, the right to go in and out of public facilities. And what did that teach us? It taught us leadership, the kind of things that would last us throughout a lifetime. It taught us respect for one another, love for one another that would last a lifetime. So all I can say to you is, getting involved with this, talking with Cheri and some other people, we started capturing these stories, and we said, let's write it down. We need to write this stuff down. We need to write it down before we all pass away and the stories are gone. So that's what started this snowball effect. A few stories, a few more stories, someone else hears something, some more stories, on and on and on. Now we're up to over 160 stories of people and families and what can still be said about what went on during the time of our parents from the 1940s on up through about the end of the 1970s. I wish we could capture everything, but we can't. But we are capturing a lot. And so here we are putting this together. We're now getting closer and closer to the production stage. What I want to see from this is, one, we are recording some type of history. It's not a history book, but it's some type of history. It can be seen by anyone. I hope that some young person picks this book up and just starts flipping through the pages and saying, oh, that's my street. Oh, I've heard of that person. Oh, I know this. I've seen this before. gee, maybe I can really grab on to life and do something. Who knows what might become from it all, but it's certainly worth capturing all of the what we can remember, the stories that are there, because we've got to continue to tell our story.
Chickasaw Park was established in 1922. 1924 it was open for blacks. This was our park. This was where we had family reunions, church picnics, school outings, basketball games, learned to play tennis. In the wintertime, if the pond had frozen over, we'd skate on the frozen pond. So many memories. It's still our park today. It needs a lot of work. It needs a lot of TLC and love. But I used to live across the street from the park, so I would see everybody coming and going, cruising through the park as I was growing up. Couldn't cross the street, but I'd watch everybody coming and going. So this is a special place and a lot of people's memories. People had their first dates down here. They had their first kiss down here. Just a lot of memories, a lot of good memories.
Growing up in the Chickasaw neighborhood supplied us with the skills, knowledge, and abilities to thrive during a very challenging time in our nation's history. Things were changing so fast. The civil rights movement resulted in many firsts as we integrated all aspects of society. Even how we identified ourselves evolved from coloreds to mulattoes to Negroes to blacks and eventually African Americans. While the world outside our neighborhood boundaries seemed to be so chaotic and scary, our village provided a sanctuary where we felt safe, cared for, loved, and most importantly, valued.